Okay, we're back in the cheat sheet for a quick review. Let's go ahead and get started here. We started out with lesson 55, so first pass at the separation of concerns principle. And we said basically the principle states that you should separate concerns to mitigate the impact of change on a software system. And so we defined some common concerns that virtually all applications, especially business style applications, have, but also some games and things of that nature. Let's go presentation. So there's presentation logic that we want to separate from like business, or what I call domain logic. And then there's also persistence logic in many applications. And there might even be additional concerns beyond this, or there might be concerns where it makes sense to split some of these out into multiples based on the given application architecture that you're building. So the recommendation that I gave of a more practical nature is that you should separate concerns into projects within a given solution, and we demonstrated that in one of the other lessons we're going to review right now. But essentially within and also there was a naming, let's go with the naming convention, could be something like my project is, let's start over again. Let's do this like my application. That's probably a better way to go about it, would be the solution name. And then we would add 3 projects to it: my application dot presentation, or we could even do or dot web or something along those lines, which would be the presentation project. And then we might do my application dot domain, and that would be the domain or business rules project. Okay, there we go. And let me change this to, and just say this is a presentation project, right? And then finally, my application dot persistence. We could also do DB or something like that. .db .data .db. Okay, and that is going to be the persistence project. Okay. All right. So that's enough about that. Let's move on, and we talked about exception handling. CS, ASPs. Whoops. Did I do this right? Nope. I forgot something here. I knew I was forgetting something. 055, I believe it was. Sorry about that. All right. Next up is going to be understanding exception handling, and that was CS ASP 056. All right, in exception handling, we said that you should wrap a try catch around code in certain situations, and we gave actually quite a few scenarios, but I'm just going to really boil it down to its essence here, that you are calling into that you didn't write, code that accesses external resources, like anything on the network, anything on the computer's hard drive, anything out on the web, things of that nature, and then code that accepts input from other sources. So that could be another software system, an end user, and so on. Let's move on. All right, so here's how you do it. Try, and then we'll do catch. And there's a couple different ways you can do this. Exception. You can just do it without anything if you just want to ignore the exception itself or rethrow something. I typically catch the exception and put it into a local variable EX no matter what. And so we also said that you want to do a catch and do some specific exception and catch those first. So let me put this catch more specific exceptions first. exceptions first, more general last. All right. And then we said for exceptions, you probably want to log it somehow. You may want to swallow it, which means I'm just going to ignore it. I'm not going to do anything with it, and it'll be just fine in certain cases. Or we might need to rethrow it because the code here at this level doesn't really know what to do with it. You're going to need something else to make some decisions about how to handle it. It could be giving it to the user as an option. What do we do now? Letting the domain layer figure out what we do now. Maybe it's a retry, but we want to communicate that back up the stack, so to speak. And then we said that there's the finally, and you don't have to include this as optional, but you would perform cleanup, and it's not readily apparent right now why you would use finally, but when we start using some external resources like a database connection, for example, I think it'll become more clear. All right, so that's the beginning of our jaunt into exception handling. Let's go with the next topic, which was understanding global exception handling, and that was CS-ASP 057. And so we said that unhandled exceptions will bubble up until the point when they're exposed to the end user, and we know that affectionately as the yellow screen of death. So the best place to handle exceptions is the nearest locale to the exception itself. However, you can handle it globally, and to do that we're going to add some code to the global.asax file, and we would add the following code. Now I'm just going to copy and paste. I generally in these cheat sheet reviews don't like to do that, but in this one case there's just so much code, so you might want to just open up that project and grab this, or you might want to look at my version of the cheat sheet and grab this and paste it in, and because there's just so much typing here, and it's basically what we did before, but we want to add this this application underscore error event handler. It's going to pass in a sender and an event args e, and so we've got several things in addition to just how to handle it using the event handler. We actually got some logic here that we might find ourselves using. For example, we might want to get the last error, and inside of that last error we'll probably want to get the inner exception, because the last error will probably in a web application always be HTTP unhandled exception. So now once you know what the inner exception is, you can figure out if what the type is, and then take some action based on that. So for example, here we're comparing and seeing if the inner exception's type using the get type method is equal to the type of a exception subclass called argument out of range exception. And if it is, in this particular case, then we might transfer the user to error.aspx. So we said that there's a difference between response redirect and server.transfer. Response redirect tells the browser, hey, I need you to look at another page, whereas server transfer just goes ahead and takes care of it on the server side, all right, and it just starts executing that code and passing it into the output stream for the web page. And then finally, as you can see here, you need to clear out the server error if you're going to handle things globally. If you do not do this, then it's still going to bubble up to the end user and give them the yellow screen of death. All right, so sorry to cut that one short, but again, so much typing, I thought it would be too difficult to go through that. All right, so last one for now, understanding custom exceptions, and this was really easy. CS-ASP 058. Now, we haven't talked about object-oriented program, we haven't talked about inheritance, but basically you just inherit from the base system.exception class. So you would inherit from exception like so. You do public class my custom exception. You can name it anything you want, but the convention is to always leave the word exception on the end, and you use the colon and then the class that you're inheriting from. In this case, we're going to inherit from exception, and you really don't need to do anything else. In our example, we showed how you could add a property and maybe even a constructor to populate it. You don't have to do that. If your only purpose for a custom exception is to communicate back up through a layer and let the layer above, wherever the exception happened, handle the situation, say, okay, what went wrong, then you don't need to add anything else to the custom exception. All right, so that's all I have for this cheat sheet. I think we only have one more cheat sheet left, so awesome. We're getting close to the end. See you in the next video. Thanks.